Boston Braves after the turn of the century. In 1904, he was purchased by Louisville of the American Association and became their catcher and manager. He was released in July of 1905 and ended the season as a utility player with Des Moines in the Western League. In September, he was named Des Moines' manager. With that brief summary of Charlie Dexter's playing career, I'd like to focus on 3 days in his life. This is the first one. The Louisville Colonels came to Milwaukee for a 2-game series on Tuesday, August 23, 1904. Charlie Dexter brought his fiancée, Mary Olson of Boston, to town with him. The couple appeared in the judicial chambers of Judge Neal in the city halls to be married before the game. With the couple was best man. This, by the way, is Charlie. It's obviously Mary in the middle. And with them was the best man, who was brewer manager Joe Cantilla. Unfortunately, the couple did not know there was a 5-day interval for the license to be issued before the ceremony could be performed. However, the judge appreciated the fact that a captain of a baseball team is entitled to certain special dispensations and waived the 5-day waiting period. Within a few minutes, the new groom with his bride next to him rushed out of the building. As it was Tuesday, it was Ladies' Day at the ballpark, and Mrs. Dexter said she would be at the game to see her husband's team beat the Brewers. And beat the Brewers, the Colonels did by a score of 10-5. Unfortunately, the new Mrs. Dexter didn't see her husband in the whole game, as he was ejected in the 3rd inning for arguing with the umpire. We'll now jump to 1905. Which gives me a reason to wear my $40 1905 Milwaukee Brewers baseball hat. $39.98 actually, I exaggerated on 40. After the 1905 American Association season ended, most of the members of the Brewers went on a barnstorming tour. On September 27th, this tour went to Des Moines, Iowa. The city's underwriters were the 1905 Western League champions. The club was owned by Milwaukee manager Joe Cantilla and his brother Mike. Charlie Dexter was the manager of this team. The underwriters won the first 2 games of the series, and the Brewers came back to win the next 3. The night the series ended, a number of the players from both teams made a final round of the local saloons.
Next time, I'm taking Dad with me.
Exactly what happened is open to debate, but what is known is that Charlie Dexter produced a knife and stabbed Brewer first baseman Coy Bateman in the chest. There's Coy Bateman, but 1905 hat on for offensive play. Newspaper reports in the following days are a reminder of how facts get distorted through the telling and retelling of stories. All reports have one fact in common. The players had been drinking. According to the Milwaukee Journal, they were badly intoxicated. Got another picture that's a little better of Bateman. At the corner of 6th Avenue and Walnut Street at 8 o'clock at night, something happened. Initial reports stated that Dexter, who had partaken freely until he was in ugly humor, drew Bateman aside and the two became engaged in a heated argument, allegedly over the portion of a calf fare that Dexter thought Bateman owed. An Iowa newspaper gave this melodramatic description of the events that followed. Charlie here. Bateman was heard to apply an epitaph to Dexter, and the next instant a knife glittered in Dexter's hand and descended on Bateman's breast, cutting a deep gash in the right lung. Bateman sunk to the sidewalk with a groan. He was immediately taken by an ambulance to the office of Dr. L.D. Root, where he made a statement to the effect that he and Dexter had been together for a time, renewing old acquaintances, and were engaged in a few words on Walnut Street. I didn't think he would do it, the injured man said, but without any warning, he pulled a knife and stabbed me. I didn't think Dex would do it. Loss of blood prevented a further statement. The newspaper reported Bateman was taken to Mercy Hospital, where Dr. Root made the statement he doubted Bateman's recovery. According to this report, Dexter remained on the street corner after the stabbing and made threats of violence to friends who tried to reason with him. Finally, a police officer came and arrested Charlie Dexter. Other reports in the next day or two described the knife as being a big pocket knife and Dexter's wound as piercing the lung and opening a 6-inch gash. Another had Dexter utter an oath in a fit of demonic temper, draw a huge pocket knife and plunge it into Bateman's bosom, cutting his gash 6 inches in depth and several inches deep. There's the two of them. To show how the story quickly got out of hand, the published report in the Waterloo newspaper the day after the incident had the incident occurring during the game. It read, stabbed on the ball field. The seventh inning of the game in a series being played in Des Moines between the Milwaukee team and the Des Moines team, catcher Charles Dexter pulled a long knife and stabbed first baseman Bateman, striking him several times with the knife and cutting gashes that will undoubtedly result in the death of Bateman. The two teams had been playing a long series in the city, and the strained blood between the two players had been allowed to grow unchecked during the series. The trouble becoming greater each day until this afternoon when the stabbing occurred. The act by Dexter was done so quickly that none of the players could interfere. Dexter is under arrest and will be held pending the death or recovery of Bateman. The affair caused a great disturbance between the players and in the grandstands. At a late hour, the death of Bateman seemed imminent, and he is sinking quickly. But within several days, the severity of the injury and the treatment were being reported differently. Sources now reported there was no fight. The players had been in a group, and Dexter had a small penknife in his hand and was talking in a very loud voice. He struck out with his hand, and the knife went through the clothing of Bateman, who just happened to be the nearest to Dexter. The cut was little more than a scratch, and Bateman walked himself to the doctor's office. However, the cut must have been a little smaller than the scratch as Bateman was taken to and admitted to Mercy Hospital. It turned out the wound was long and deep, and the knife had splintered one of Bateman's ribs. He would be in the hospital about 2 weeks. Nevertheless, Coit Bateman told authorities his injuries were minor and he did not wish to prosecute. He signed an affidavit to that effect, and Charlie Dexter was released from police custody. Charlie immediately took off for Chicago. Shortly after the first of the year, it was reported Bateman was still weak, but hoping to be ready for spring training. It was thought in some quarters that this lack of prosecution desire by Bateman was brought on by a hospital visit by Mike Cantillon, one of the owners of the Underwriters. An Iowa newspaper later reported Cantillon visited the hospital and after talking with him had influenced Bateman to drop charges against his Des Moines manager. It appears the entire incident was totally out of character for both players. The Milwaukee Journal told its readers that Bateman was considered one of the quietest players on the team, and in fact, he was said to not even be a drinking man. An unknown person wrote to the Waterloo Times-Tribune shortly after the incident saying this: in reference to the stabbing of a ball player in Des Moines a few days ago, it has been asserted that Charlie Dexter was possessed of a very bad temper and is pugnacious at all times. This writer, from personal acquaintance, is in a position to refute this statement and positively assert that Dexter is as fine a fellow as one would care to meet. Dexter's reputation has always been of the best, and in all this writer's personal experiences with Charlie Dexter, he has never known the player to be guilty of a dishonorable action. Coit Bateman would recover and play 155 games for Milwaukee Brewers in 1906. Charlie Dexter would continue to play and manage the Underwriters until 1908. The above letter that tells us that Charlie Dexter was never guilty of a dishonorable action doesn't even come close to telling the heroic tale of Charlie Dexter's life only 2 years before. On the afternoon of December 30th, 1903, the Iroquois Theater in Chicago presented a matinee performance of Mr. Bluebeard before a standing room only crowd. Many of the estimated 2,000 people in attendance were children. For those who know Chicago, the theater was located downtown on Randolph Street between State and Kilbourne, where apparently the Oriental Theater is now. Shortly after the beginning of the second act, an arc light shorted out and ignited a curtain. Efforts to put out the fire were not successful. In the hysteria to get out of the theater, hundreds of people were trapped, crushed, or suffocated. Asphyxiated. Others made it to the inadequate fire escape and jumped to their Yeah. In the end, at least 605 people died. In the audience that afternoon were Charlie Dexter and his friend John Houseman, a former baseball player who played a little in Chicago 9 years earlier. The two had purchased seats in an upper box, and Houseman commented that there were a great number of women and children present. When the fire was first noticed, Houseman and Dexter told the patrons in the box with them of the situation, began to leave the theater quietly so not to start a panic. The flames quickly started to intensify and spread, and panic did ensue. Dexter was separated from Houseman, so decided the best thing to do was to jump onto the stage and get out through the stage door. Dexter said people were running all over, and he ran into a crowd of little children. In his own words, Dexter explained what happened next. The people were running over one another. I saw some draperies hanging and opened them. I didn't know where I was going, and I found two doors of glass or wood. I didn't stop to examine them when I opened them. I found myself up against some iron doors. I didn't know what to do or how to work them. The only thing I could see was a crossbar, and I started to shove up on it, but I couldn't shove very well, and I started to beat at it. By this time, the people were pushing up against me, and I didn't know whether I could open the doors or not. I had all the poor little kids around me, and I beat the thing until it finally went up. And as I did, we went out into the alley. I turned and looked back and saw a wave of fire sweeping over the whole inside of the theater. W.A. Thielen wrote about the heroics of both men in the sporting life. He related what one little boy wrote in a letter to Dexter. The kid thanked Charlie for saving his tiny life. The boy had been trampled down in the rush to get out and was lying on the floor when Dexter seized him, lifted him up, and catching another child with his remaining hand, bore both the little ones to safety. Thielen wrote that Houseman's old-time skill came back to him as he caught a frantic woman leaping from the balcony. He braced for the shock just as he would have braced himself to withstand a sliding runner, and though knocked down and bruised, succeeded in keeping the woman from injury. Even given that Thielen used a little poetic license in describing the actions of Dexter and Houseman at the fire, he was no doubt correct when he wrote, "The coolness of the ball players in this hour of dread and danger was something as marvelous as it was heroic." Later reports credited the ball players with saving from 200 to 300 lives. This number could be high, but there's no doubt the two men did what they could do in this terrible situation. There's no doubt in my mind that Charlie Dexter should be remembered for his actions inside the Iroquois Theater. His very average baseball statistics and the incident with Coit Bateman should be placed as footnotes to what I think is a pretty darn heroic man. Thank you.